There's been nearly 1,000 NRL games played over the past 5 years, and slightly more of those games have gone over the total, but not by much. 501 games have gone over, 484 have gone under. So if you look at like the overall records, and if we look at the overall records for each team, we need situations where at least 53% of games are going either way, whether that be over or under the total points line. Now, when I'm referring to the total points line, we're looking at this Manly Rabbitohs game. Scroll down to the total match points. The line is set at 41.5. So if at the end of the game, both teams' combined score is 42 or more, it went over. If it's 41 or less, then it went under the total in that situation. So this is every team, their matchups, their games over these past 5 years, going back to 2019, whether those games were going over or under the total. A couple of things to pay attention to. Day games have gone under the total ever so slightly. Night games have gone slightly over the total, which for a lot of sports played outdoors generally isn't the case. One thing that also really stood out when I was going through these results is depending what the total was set. So down the left-hand side here, we've got the different ranges where a total is generally set for the NRL, and it does vary season by season. This number does kind of find its sweet spot halfway through the season, and they really stick to that range. But just looking at the past 5 years, when the total was set at 46.5 or greater, so anything above that, of those games, 85 went over the total, but 123 went under the total. So as soon as it's 46.5 or more, those games are going under. And then when the total's up to 46 points, those games are going over the total. 416 went over, and 361 went under the total. So just monitoring that line, obviously that's a pretty big sample size over a long period of time. Hence why I'm recording this video, because I want to find situations where there's a lot of opportunities throughout a season to capitalize on. And just quickly, the past 5 years, it's kind of alternated between majority of games going under to majority of games going over. So based off this trend, it's scheduled to go over this year, but that doesn't mean anything at all. So here we're looking at the different situations. So whether teams are at home, away, favorite, underdog, home favorite, etc., day matches, night matches, or different parts of the season. And firstly, the best over team over the past 5 years has been the South Sydney Rabbitohs. 72 games have gone over at 56% of the time. So even the best team, the majority, and we've had more games going over than under, but even the best team is only at 56%, which is only slightly profitable, and that's over 5 years. So not really that ideal. And then the best under team, there's two of them tied at 42%, the Canterbury Bulldogs and also the Penrith Panthers. Both those sides have the most games going under the total. But situationally, when there's been at least 20 games for that situation, so any of these ones down the left-hand side, 20 games minimum, and what have been the highest hit rate. So there's 6 different situations that have hit at 66% or greater, starting with the best one, which is the Gold Coast Titans. 71% of games are going over the total when their line is set between 38.5 and 42. So 28 games there, 20 have gone over. The Sharks, as an away favorite, 32 games, 22 went over the total, 69%. Also exactly 69% as well is the Parramatta Eels as an away favorite. 22 of their 32 games went over. Melbourne in day games. So the Melbourne Storm day matches, 28 games, 19 went over at 68%. So another high number there. Majority of these obviously being played on Sunday afternoons. The Sharks during the early part of the season, 39 games, 26 went over the total at 67%. And finally, Manly as a home favorite, 66% went over, 23 of 35 games. So those are the best ones with at least 20 games. a couple of other honorable mentions that are hitting at high rates, but there's not enough data yet. The Rabbitohs as a home underdog, 13 games, 10 of them have gone over. And also the Rabbitohs, when the total is 38 or less, 19 games, 14 have gone over the total in that situation. So those are a couple there with South Sydney to watch over the upcoming seasons. But as you'll notice, a lot of these teams are very close to that 50% mark because the betting companies want to have this overall number as close to 50% as they possibly can. Now, looking at the under perspective, so switching it around, who are the best under teams in different situations? Interestingly, the Rabbitohs have the best situation for an under, even though they're the biggest over side. Now, that situation is when they are an away underdog. So right here, 21 games, 15 went under the total. The Titans, when they are a favorite, come back across, 27 games, 18 have gone under the total. Newcastle Knights, so when the total is set between 46.5 and 50, and this is the closing line, 14 of the 21 games went under. Melbourne Storm also in the total range here, between 38.5 and 42. 37 games with 24 going under the total. New Zealand Warriors in day matches, we'll find it here in a second, 58 day matches they've had over the past 5 seasons and 37 have gone under. So there's a lot of data there producing unders for Warriors day matches. And the Penrith Panthers also in day games, 28, 18 of them have gone under. And the thing you want to monitor here is these situations, how they're progressing over time, because obviously that's not just going to continue forever and ever and ever. Hence the reason why I monitor this all the time, week on week, to see how teams are tracking against spread. And this is like the information the betting companies don't want you to know. They want you just betting based on your gut feeling of which team you think is going to win, whether you think it's going to be a high scoring game or a low scoring game, and not paying attention to what the betting data is telling you, what the historical matchups for these sides have been from a betting perspective, and then combining that with their current form and also their current statistics and analytics, how they're actually performing and how they match up against their opponent. A few others that were honorable mentions as well in the under category, but just not enough data to fully catch on. Redcliffe Dolphins, at the end of their opening season, their final 8 games, 7 of the 8 went under the total. The Sharks with a high total, so between 50.5 and 54, 5 of the 6 went under the total. Roosters in finals, so they're likely going to make it this season. They've had 10 finals matches over the past 5 years. 8 of them have gone under, so super low scoring there. And the Bulldogs, when the total is at 38 or less, 14 of 18 have gone under. So only 22% of games going over the total there, and they're already a big underside. So to have a large amount of their low totals also going under is very, very interesting. Hopefully this video gave you some insight into how teams are performing. It's definitely important that you keep track of this. Make sure you look through this table that I have on the screen now. If you want to view these results and past ones against the spread results, all that information, that's why I have the Bet Finder software, which you can get on investor.bet.com.au. So keep an eye on the channel for more videos and hit subscribe so you can make money betting on the NRL this season.